Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I can't tell you how unusual it is to be ahead of schedule. What a great feeling it is, because it gives me more opportunity to speak. And I think those of you who have been at conferences I've been involved in before, it's usually only when the rotten fruit is thrown that I get down. But we're going to kick this off this morning with our first panel. And we're going to be addressing, I think, a point that's very interesting for us here, with the airports as an engine for national economic growth. And I think, as we've just heard and as we've seen here, with the amount of the GDP in the UAE that's actually dependent on aviation, and the question is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it a successful airline or is it a successful airport? And in order to discuss this morning, I'm delighted to invite to the stage our panellists, starting with Inderjit Singh, an airport consultant, who I think many of us have known through work with ICAO, and I've actually read the piece in Arabian Aerospace this month. Franz Buschnutzen, who is Project Director with Ramboll. Mr. P.S. Nair, the Chief Executive Officer for the Corporate Airport Sector of GMR, who we'll know from Sabiha Gökçen in Turkey, and of course Delhi, and Mr. R.K. Jain, the Chief Executive Officer from Mumbai International Airport. So a pretty decent selection of experience, and what we've got, as you've seen in the programme, is a group of questions that have been posed for us. But what I want to do is I'm going to ask the panel to address some of those issues individually, but I'm also going to then try and bring us across the board and ask you to join in this, because I think the more interactive this session can be, the better it is, the more we learn. But I want us to try and stick to at least the subjects that we've got here, which is airports as an engine for national economic growth. And I think what we want to do really is to get the ball rolling, and I'm going to ask Inderjit Singh to come to the podium first of all to talk about how airports can act as a catalyst for economic development. Inderjit, if you'd like to come to the stage.
Thank you, Alan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Trade, commerce, travel and tourism are the triggering factors of economic growth of any nation. Logistics is the new buzzword in the world economy for the 21st century, and it is fast becoming a driving force for development, particularly in the emerging economies. Logistics, as you all know, is the management of the flow of resources between the point of origin and the point of consumption in order to meet certain specific requirements of customers, industries and corporations. Going back a little in the history, waterways in terms of rivers and their tributaries have been from time immemorial the medium for the flow as a significant transport infrastructure for the movement of such resources. No wonder that the economically developed major cities worldwide, with trade and commerce as their mainstay, have flourished either on the banks of rivers or have a river flowing through them. Be it the River James and Rhine in Europe, River Congo and Nile in Africa, Mississippi, Missouri and Amazon in the US, and Brahmaputra cutting across China, India and Bangladesh in Asia. However, this medium has a limited connectivity. And connectivity again is what we are all looking for. Towards the end of 20th century and the beginning of 21st century, globalization of trade and simultaneous advancement in air transport technology has led air routes to take over this function, which henceforth was being done in the waterways, with unlimited access to skies, permitting the goods and services to crisscross uninterrupted over the land, mountains and oceans. So naturally, airports have thus become an integral link in the total global air transport supply chain, playing a key role in sustainable economic growth. It has been ascertained by IATA in a recent study that the economic rate of return on investment is highest from aviation-related activities amongst other industries, ranging globally between 16 to 59%, a very healthy rate of return, with impact on GDP ranging again from 0.56% to 1.49%, which is again a voluminous projection. Some airports have become an epitome of efficiency in handling passengers and cargo and setting benchmarks for the world to emulate. It's not a mere coincidence that the countries and cities where these airports are located have become, in addition to trade and commerce, a magnet for travel and tourism, contributing immensely to its economy through direct and indirect benefits. In this regard, Dubai is an apt example to quote. To sum up, aviation, the world's most global industry, as I feel, is caught today in a tug of war between expansion versus containment. On one hand, we have the traffic growing. On the other side, we are restricted for growth because of lobbies from environment and other concerns, which are absolutely right also. But the whole idea is, how do we strike a balance? And I see the luminaries in civil aviation and airports, which we can think about as we get into the discussion as to how to overcome that dilemma. It is actually a catch-22 situation. A glaring example is the scrapping of the third runway at Heathrow Airport due environmental and other concerns. And the repercussions are so obvious. Of course, there will be people who would say that we don't want the third runway, but then it's my gut feeling that another runway would be little less harmful than a brand new airport elsewhere. But it's all open to debate and discussion. I say why this is bad. In terms of destinations served worldwide, international airports, Heathrow has fallen from 2nd in 1990 to 7th in 2010 and 10th in 2012. So there has been a rapid decline of connectivity of Heathrow to worldwide network. The number of destinations that can be directly accessed from Heathrow now are 157, that's the latest figure, compared to 250 from Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport and 265 from Frankfurt Airport. This shows that London's only hub airport is losing out to other European airports. One can say that, of course, it's not going out of Europe, but then here we are talking of nations, we are not talking of global. This shows that London's only hub airport is losing out to other European airports, which, if sustained, could have long-term damaging effects for the economies of London and the UK. Here again, I would say DWC, in all its wisdom, takes the cake, because there is a planning of 6 runways over a period of time, so there is no restriction to start. We can carry on commissioning more and more runways as the traffic grows and as the need comes forward. In case there is little sluggish traffic growth, one can always halt that expansion program. So a third runway at airport, we have just seen the repercussions of not allowing a third runway at Heathrow Airport. But then, as I mentioned earlier, this is something which is very debatable, whether an airport should have the capability, and if it has the capability, why restrict it rather than going for a brand new airport, because that would, over a period of time, probably will be much more expensive and have environmental problems there too. It's just a matter of time. So that's my submission, and I'm open to any discussions that you would like to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think putting ideas together is one thing, and actually having hard facts is another. And I think when we look at Delhi Airport, the challenges that happened there in the capital of India, I think, Mr. President, you have some actual figures and a real study, which is, I think, quite unusual for that, for the economic impact. Perhaps you'd like to share that with us.
A very good morning to all of you. Thank you, Alan. Fellow panelists, distinct delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I think I will start with an anecdote and say live one. I'm sure most of you must have seen Delhi's brand new Terminal 3. Post-com, I happened to be the CEO and the airport was commissioned. Post-commissioning T3, we have our aspiration to develop Delhi into an international hub and thereby regaining the lost opportunity, the opportunity the country has lost. So I called on the Chief Minister of Delhi, a very dynamic lady, and I said that, look, we need a lot of support from you to develop Delhi into a hub. She said, okay, yes, incidentally she is very, very proactive, and she suggested what is that I can do. So I said, look, Delhi, and for that matter, the whole of India, as you know, surely is costly. And Delhi has the sales tax of 25%, is a huge component. And that deters the airline which you operate to Delhi. So I said, look, the airport is bringing so much of benefit to the region, and then you should subsidize and then bring down that 25% tax to 5%. And I gave all the, she said, I'm losing so much money. What is it that you are going to do for me, for the NCT Delhi, National Capital Territory of Delhi? So I rattled out that we had the IATA study, we had the Pennsylvania School of Study about what the economic impact an airport can bring to the region. I rattled out all those things. So this lady, she was a smart lady, she promptly snubbed me by saying that, yes, Mr. Nair, I agree. That's all that's in Pennsylvania and US and Europe. What is it that you are going to do here? What are you going to say that? I must confess, I didn't have the facts and figures, and that's how we commissioned the National Council of Applied Economic Research, the premier economic research body in the country, and we commissioned them to carry out the economic impact of Delhi Airport. What impact it can have on the economy of the national capital territory of Delhi and those of the country. And I would like to share those the report findings very briefly with you. I'm going to say it was quite revealing. It says two parts: the contribution to Indian and regional GDP, and the contribution by way of employment generation. Now, Delhi Airport's operations contributed we took the base year 2009-10. Contribution was 294.7 billion Indian rupees, which is 0.45% of the entire national GDP. And its contribution related to Delhi's GSDP was 30.5%. And the breakup of this 294.7 billion, as I said, 42.9 billion directly contributed through value-added services, that's air transport and airport services. 77.2 billion indirectly contributed through supply chain, that is the multiplier impact, and 174.6 billion Indian rupees by way of induced impact through tourism and investment, aviation-related investment. By the year 2020, the overall economic impact of Delhi Airport is expected to be approximately 909.5 billion, which will be 0.7% of the country's GDP, and related to Delhi's GSDP would be 22.2%. We had, within 37 months, it was a short time, we constructed Terminal 3, which is I think it is the world's 8th largest integrated terminal. And there were massive constructions undertaken in 3 years. And Delhi Airport construction sector contributed internally to 68.23 billion, which is 0.104% to the national GDP of the base year of 2009-10. And its contribution related to Delhi's GDP was 3.13%. And this, of course, is a one-time impact, which includes 1/3 of the total project cost. The total impact of the construction phase would therefore be 3 times this estimated, but spread over 3 years. Now let me also touch upon the contribution of the airport to the environment. Now the airport's operation sector contributed 1.578 million jobs. This constitutes 0.34% for the national environment and 25.9% the Delhi's total environment. The breakup of 1.578 million is as follows: 64,000 directly contributed jobs, people who own the airport, pass and walk to the airport, and 452,000 indirectly contributed jobs through supply chain, that is basically the multiplier impact. And 1.062 million jobs in induced impact through tourism and investment in the tourism and civilization related sector. Now Delhi's airport's construction activities contributed 614,000 jobs in each of the 3 years of construction phase. In fact, we had people from 14 countries working at the airport continuously for 3 years. This breakup of the 614,000 is as follows: 35,000 directly contributed jobs, 579,000 indirectly contributed jobs through multiplier effort. The study has illustrated the significant linkage that the airport can have on the region and also the country. And I went back to the lady chief minister and I presented with my comment. In fact, when we had a formal inauguration where the ex-president of India was invited and she agreed, but she couldn't make it because she was indisposed. But subsequently called on her. And believe me, with facts and figures that I supplemented from the most credible agencies, she said, yes, I accept that, yes, you substantiated what you have said, and let me see what best I can do. And I'm hopeful of, bringing me a breakthrough or a dent in that, the fuel sector. One of the several challenges which airports, particularly the airports, face. I thought I would share this with you. Thank you.
So the case for an airport being a catalyst for the economic development is pretty sound. If you look at half a million jobs that are indirectly associated. Now I'm British, as you can possibly tell from the accent, and for the last probably 10 years we've been debating very heavily in the UK the issue of London's Heathrow Airport. The world's major cities, the global cities, have airports that can act as a hub, and that's why I think we can see how Dubai is rapidly becoming one of the world's global cities. But what about London? London has been for many, many years, but prevarication over its policy on airport expansion seems to be knocking that back, and it's quite an interesting debate that's been going on in the country, from some interesting, crazy ideas like putting the airport pretty close to Dutch airspace instead of our own, which I think is going to make any of those suggestions fail. However, I think possibly to put the case slightly differently, Frans Boschlossen has been working on a consultation project with interested parties in the UK to discuss moving London's Heathrow Airport or expanding the airport. Prime Minister, you'll share with us where you are with those findings.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you this morning. We have already been introduced to the development of Dubai as a world hub, no doubt about that. My company, Rambo, is for the time being working for Transport for London with respect to the possible not possible, but for the development and possible relocation of Heathrow Airport to a new place, most likely on reclaimed land in the River Thames east of London. It's a huge project. Actually, it's one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest airport project in Europe and maybe in the world. It will provide substantial capacity increase both on the airside and in the terminal, and it will give more capacity in the airspace. But one of the key challenges in this European project is to estimate the future world hub market. London is today the leading hub in Europe, but as I said, with capacity constraints both with respect to the runway system and particularly in the airspace. The challenge for us is to estimate the future hub market, taking the changes in the worldwide hub and transfer market into consideration. Right now we are doing the market assessment and the forecasting for the new London airport. We study in particular the role of the Middle East airports, which today connect the entire world between North and South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and even Australia. I just read in the magazine yesterday that there are 98 weekly connections from Dubai to Australia. Very impressive, and it means that the hub market, for instance in the case of Australia, has been redefined. Just a few years ago, that the hub was Bangkok or Singapore or Hong Kong or somewhere else in Southeast Asia. Today it seems that the hub for Australia has been redefined. It's to a wide extent Dubai. There is no doubt that the growing A380 fleet, the strong feeder system provided by the Middle East carriers, and the huge investments in the Middle East airports will change the international route structure dramatically, and especially for the European hubs. So the subject of this session is to discuss aviation and the national economy. That's fine, of course, that's important. But I think we need to take a broader perspective to discuss the aviation sector, not only in a national context, but in a worldwide perspective. Airport development is not only in the Middle East, but we should also take into consideration, for instance, the airport development in China. There are maybe not hundreds, but close to 100 airport projects in China. And we will see new connections from these airports directly from the Chinese airports, because there will be many of them, to Europe and elsewhere in the world. India is of course also on the map, and there will be direct connections because the traffic volumes will increase, and that will justify direct connections. So all these airport developments will support and accelerate the changes, not only in the aviation sector, but as a part of the world economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope when we come through to getting you to get some questions, we're going to generate a little debate on some of these points here. But looking at drawing the investment, making the investment work, how do we get people to invest or governments to invest in these projects? One of the biggest projects that we've seen in recent years is Mumbai, and delighted that the CEO of Mumbai, Mr. R.P. Jain, is going to talk to us about how he dealt and has to deal on an ongoing basis with the challenges of Mumbai Airport.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to introduce what we are doing in Mumbai. Way back in 2006, two major airports of India, namely Delhi and Mumbai, were privatized under public-private partnership. Both the airports have a very high volume of passenger traffic. About 40-45% traffic of India is handled by these two airports. This privatization was done basically to introduce private management skills and also to bring investment for development of airports, so that Airport Authority of India, which is a government body, is free to develop airports in far-flung areas and general development of airports. While what will attract investment in airports? Basically, for any investment to be there in airports, there are few basic fundamental requirements which must be there. Of course, first of all, there has to be potential for traffic, passenger throughput, which is of minimum level. Then only an airport can be developed. Second is, regulatory regime has to be very clear. What will be the charges? How charges will be finalized? Which PIN will be adopted? Single, dual, hybrid. In case of both the airport privatization, agreements were fairly clear, and it was provided that how charges will be fixed, how tariff will be finalized by regulatory authority. So, tariff clarity on regulation is extremely important for any investment to be attracted for airport development. Third thing is certainly investment climate in the country in general, availability of funds for development of airport. Their government can play a key role by providing some low-cost funds for development of airport. Thirdly, then lastly, basically, for any investment to be attracted, it is essential that there is a long-term clarity on government policies on open sky or how the traffic rights will be finalized, so that sufficient and how if there is any potential for development hub, how government is going to cooperate in development hubs, because both the airports are very strategically placed in India and can be developed as major hubs. But if government policy does not support, then certainly hubs can shift elsewhere nearby. Now we are talking of hubs within 8 hours of journey, so we have a lot of competition from other airports in Middle East, basically within Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha. So, and the development of airport will depend on government policies, investment climate, passenger throughput, economic development around that region. These are the basic factors which are required. In case of Mumbai, first of all, it is a very challenging project. We are investing about $2.5 billion for the development of the airport. And it is a very constrained airport because land is not available. It was airport out of city, but now it is within the city. City is around the airport. So there is no additional land available. So within the given constraints, we have to develop the airport. Our minimum capacity which we are planning is about 40 million passengers, which may go up with the increased efficiencies to about 45-50 million passengers. And in order to increase passenger throughput, a lot of efficiencies are being introduced other than developing the terminal and other facilities. Airside efficiency improvement is the basic focus as of now. And passenger growth potential is quite good, but there are other challenges. Like I said, that land availability is one of them, and there are slums around the airport which also needs to be cleared, and land, whatever land can be made available for development of the airport, that is also very challenging work. Other than that, when the airport was given to us, we had so many agencies scattered around the airport. We have to relocate their facilities, we have to shift some of them, we have to get somebody to vacate the airport. it is an ongoing challenge which we are facing, but we are also enjoying it because this challenge has given us a big opportunity. Thank you.
I'm just staying here for the moment now because I think this will be a nice opportunity to just break in and get some questions as we look at this economic argument. Is there anybody here, first of all? We've got people around the room, I hope with microphones, who will jump to your aid the second you stick a hand up in the air with a question. And if not, that gives me an opportunity to start. If I can, I'll just address you to the panel that point about the catalyst for national development and then making the economic case. If we look at Turkey, for example, I mean, in the last week, the contract has been let for the new Istanbul Airport, $29 billion. $29 billion. Now, my understanding was a number of people had dropped out of that because it looked like it was too much. Is that a good case? And it looks to me like the Turkish government has gone, well, taking that money. Do airports make that much money that it's worth investing $29 billion in order to build and manage? Is there a great economic case that it would use for Turkey? Can I start with you?
Incidentally, in Turkey, we have an airport in the sense that where we hold 40% stake, which is the second airport, Sabiha Ghosh International Airport, which is on the Asian side. And the partners, our partner, 40% stakeholder is Limac. And Limac is the winner.